Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have another big show for you all, as we have a lot to talk about, such as the Clippers. They finally did it. They made the Western Conference Finals. I can't believe it. They actually did it. Now, can they beat the Phoenix Suns? So far, they're down 2-1, but it's nowhere near over yet, as this Clippers team is showing a lot of heart and grit despite not having Kawhi Leonard. And the Dodgers, oh my goodness, they are just on a bad losing streak. And they got no hit by the Cubbies. Absolutely disappointing, and the Angels are no better, as they have not beaten anyone since they lost to the Detroit Tigers. Not good news for the Halos. But the Padres are back on track, as they will be going into a 3-game series tonight. Hopefully they can continue to make up some ground and try to keep pace with the San Francisco Giants. Also, the LA Galaxy and LAFC both picked up wins on Wednesday, as the Galaxy defeated Vancouver in overtime while LAFC dispatched of Dallas. So that's some good news right there. And then we have a little bit of USC news. Yeah, but don't worry, I've got some UCLA commitment news as well. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you very much for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon or Friday evening, depending on where you're listening this show from or when you're listening this show from. But it is a beautiful Friday. It is definitely a scorcher here in Southern California, as summer has arrived. So definitely apply your sunblock, and if you're not going outside, definitely keep yourself cool. If there's a cool breeze, open your windows. If there is no cool breeze, turn on your AC or fan. Just don't have it on too much, because you need to conserve electricity, if that's what your thing is. So, that ain't further delay, let's get on into the Southern California sports action. But first, a word from our sponsor, which actually comes from Southern California itself, the Southern California Warriors, a semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what the circumstance is, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow Southern California Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors. You can also follow them on Instagram at SouthernCalifornia_Warriors. And if they are also on Facebook, so just go to the search bar, just look up the word Southern, then the word California, and the word Warriors, and then presto changeo, you should be able to find them. So definitely do check them out. And if, hence the word if, you are interested in being a part of their team and you're 18 or older, definitely let them know. Definitely let Coach Akalani Tafaheima know, as His contact info is 760-586-3293. That number again is 760-586-3293. And his email is Okalani, that's OKALANI, at SOSD.US. So definitely do check out Coach Okalani. I will one day get his last name fully correct, Johnny on the spot, but that's besides the point. So, once again, thank you to Southern California Wars for being the official sponsor for iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And now let us get into the Southern California sports action. So, first and foremost, we gotta address the big time sport team that's doing big things as of late, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers. Yes, the Clippers are still alive, and they made it to the Western Conference Finals. I never thought I'd be uttering those words, Clippers and Western Conference Finals, but honestly, even as a Lakers fan, good for them. I'm happy for them, and honestly, I hope they can go as far as they can. They definitely have a promising team, but depending on how long Kawhi Leonard is out for, could depend on how far the Clippers can go. On Sunday, the Clippers did lose to the Suns by 6, 120-114. They actually made it close toward the end. They got down at 2 points, but unfortunately, the Clippers kind of unfolded in the final seconds, which it's disappointing, but it's not bad. And then in Game 2, now this was absolutely madness. So the Clippers, let's just fast forward to the fun stuff. The Clippers were up 1 after Paul George made a big-time layup, and that was, or big-time basket. It was huge for the Clippers. And then, unfortunately for the Suns, I guess Devin Booker touched the ball last, and it went out of bounds, and then it was Clippers' ball. So the Clippers got the ball inbound to Paul George, and he got fouled intentionally, and both teams were in the bonus. So Paul George just needed to make 2 free throws, and that put a lot of pressure on the Suns to possibly tie with a 3, if he makes both free throws. So the first free throw was no good, and then the second free throw was no good. So that kind of had Clippers fans just mind blown seeing Paul George miss 2 big free throws after he made a big-time jump shot to give the Clippers the lead, the 103-102 lead. So the Suns actually got one last possession. They actually chose to shoot a 3-pointer, which I kind of don't understand that. And it eventually missed, but the ball went out of bounds last touch by the Clippers. There was 0.8 seconds remaining, and 0.8 seconds can actually win you the game. The Lakers have been in that scenario, hint, hint, 2004. But I digress on that. And you could also just throw a lob and an alley-oop to a teammate. So basically, the Clippers just needed one more stop, and then poof, they win the game, and they tie this thing 1-1, going back to Staples Center. But unfortunately, the worst thing happens for the Clippers as Jay Crowder inbounds the ball to DeAndre Ayton, as he's able to catch the ball and put the ball down for an inbound alley-oop, as he was able to beat the buzzer. And the Clippers lost Game 2 to the Suns 104-103 in very heartbreaking fashion. Also in that game, Devin Booker hurt his nose. It was kind of like the Steve Nash injury which is funny because Steve Nash was a former Sun. But I digress on that, and now we fast forward to Game 3. So this was obviously the familiar scenario. Clippers were down 0-2 after they dropped the first 2 games. They did it against the Mavericks, wound up winning in 7. They did it against the Jazz, they wound up winning in 6. Against Phoenix in Game 3, it looked as if they were going back and forth. The first quarter looked promising as they were up 8, and then the Suns just started to get it going from the field. Unfortunately for the Suns, and I think this happened a little later, but Cam Payne, a very talented player, hurt his ankle and he was unable to go the rest of the second half. The Suns eventually led by 2 at halftime. I think it was like 48-46, and both teams were playing really sloppy in that first half. But then the Clippers started to show signs of life, and they really, really were playing some great, sound, solid basketball. They were making the most of their offensive possessions. Paul George was doing it all, and he even had a 45-footer, which is basically near half court, to end the third quarter. And I think that was the key, because instead of going up 8 after 3 quarters, they go up 11, and they have all the momentum, or they have more momentum than they would have had the Suns just cut that lead down, and then the Clippers just went in with a single-digit lead. Because to me, an 11-point lead is tough to come back from unless you're like really uber talented. For the Suns, they did not have the best night, as Devin Booker did not shoot well. Chris Paul, although he had a double-double, he was like 5 for 20. I know it was his first game back, but honestly, it was rather a disappointing performance. And then they just didn't have. They managed to have some well-timely baskets, and they just eventually won. And every time the Suns tried to get it closer, the Clippers obviously had an answer, and eventually the Clippers wound up winning 106-92. And on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show account, I put a little meme that had a fork in a steak, and then I put in that steak the Suns and 4 jokes and memes, which was kind of funny. It's basically me saying, stick a fork in the Suns and 4 jokes and memes, because they are well done. So the Clippers finally wound up winning their first ever Western Conference Finals game, which is absolutely amazing. Good job to the Clippers. They're only 3 more wins away from advancing to the finals. So that was how the Clippers were able to defeat the Phoenix Suns in game number 3, which is quite good. Something I actually found out earlier today. Well, actually, this was last night. Max Kellerman, the co-host for First Take on ESPN, made this funny tweet. He said, "Congratulations to the Clippers for winning their first ever Western Conference Finals game. A mere 72 Lakers after the Lakers did it." That was pretty funny, honestly. And then Clippers superfan Marcellus Wiley, who is a former San Diego Charger, was not too thrilled. He had a cursing emoji. Oh, that's pretty. That really was funny right there, though. But a mere 72 years after the Lakers. Well, here's the good news for the Clippers. If they don't have to deal with Cam Payne, who has been such a great force for the Suns this season. I didn't even know who Cam Payne was until the Lakers played the Suns, and then when the Lakers lost Anthony Davis, that's when it all went downhill. So here's the thing for the Clippers. I think the shoe's now on the other foot. Now with Cam Payne out, the Clippers have a chance to tie the series at 2-2, because you look at the trending pattern here. The Clippers lost the first 2 games against the Dallas Mavericks. They wound up winning the next 2 games against Dallas. The Clippers lost the first 2 games against Utah. They wound up winning the next 2 games against Utah. Now, the Mavericks series was a complete flip-flop, as the Clippers lost both of their first games in Staples Center, while they wound up winning the next 2 in Dallas. Whereas the Jazz series was more home court valuable, with the exception of Game 5, where I have no idea what happened to the Jazz. But honestly, they disappointed. But then again, not having Mike Conley the whole series didn't help them. Not having Donovan Mitchell at full strength didn't help them, but I digress on that. So here's the thing for the Clippers. So that's the good news. Cam Payne might not be available for the Suns in Game 4. That might be the good news for the Clippers. The bad news, however, is that Kawhi Leonard is still out for Game 4. He's been out since he tweaked that knee in Game number 4 against the Jazz, and he has not played since. Now, the Clippers have shown great strides. However, they need Kawhi and everyone well, they're not going to have Serge Ibaka. Or, I'm sorry, Serge Ibaka, because he's out for the season with back spasm, with a back injury. He's going to get back surgery and whatnot. So, regardless, the Clippers will not have Kawhi for Game 4. And also, Marcus Morris is a game-time decision for the Clippers tomorrow as well, because he actually was not in the starting lineup, as Ty Lue actually went with Terrence Mann to start. So this is a little bit of a precarious situation that the Clippers are in. Now, Marcus Morris has definitely been good. He hasn't been on the level Paul George is, but he's contributed quite nicely. With him out, the Clippers are going to need other players to step up. Fortunately for them, they actually have players. They have Terrence Mann, they have Reggie Jackson, Pat Beverly is starting to step up. Ivica Zubac actually stepped up, the former Laker. And then they obviously have Paul George. And then Rajon Rondo had some good minutes as well, even though he wasn't that great. But regardless, this just goes to show you how deep the Clippers are. Laker fans obviously don't want to hear this, but the Clippers are deep. And if they take Game 4, then it's a brand new series. If they lose Game 4, I'll be honest, I think that might be it for the Clippers. I mean, all jokes aside of Suns in 4, now in 5, this Suns team is very talented. I don't know what happened to them in game number 3. I don't know how they only scored, 90... They scored 92 in game number 3, 92 in game number 3, and they only scored 44 in the second half altogether. That just goes to show you how much they needed Devin Booker at 100%, and they needed Cam Payne, because without those two, Clippers are going to win that one easy. So if Cam Payne is out, then the Suns are in trouble. But if Cam is able to go, he's most likely not going to be at 100% because he sprained his ankle yesterday and he just could not go. Regardless, if Cam is out, then it's a whole new series for the Clippers, especially if they win Game 4. I said the Clippers were going to, not the Clippers, the Suns were going to win this one in 6. Now, this obviously does not mean I don't think the Clippers can win this series. I think the Clippers can for sure win this series. Matter of fact, I know they can. Because they have a deep roster and they have the best coach currently in the NBA in Ty Lue. And I think he's the only coach that remains that's won an NBA championship as a head coach, having won it with Cleveland in 2016, which everyone knows that little song and dance. So for the Clippers, this series is far from over. And especially, and like I said, if they win Game 4, they are back in this series. But the thing is, can they win a game on the road? That's my concern for them. Because they have struggled. I don't think they have yet to win a game again at Phoenix. I want to say they have maybe won a game or two this season against the Suns at Phoenix. This kind of looks like a job for the NBA, the ESPN app. So the Clippers have beaten the Suns. Oh, yeah, because on April 28th, the Suns beat the Clippers 109-100. So that was in the regular season. And then, again, still looking But actually the Clippers did beat the Suns one time in Phoenix. The Clippers beat the Suns 112-107, which is impressive. Well, it's not the most convincing win, but it's still a pretty decent win nonetheless. Regardless, I still have my doubts on the Clippers winning in Phoenix, especially in a raucous crowd like that. Yes, they were able to win the raucous crowd. That was Utah. Yes, they were able to get the job done on the road against Dallas. But Phoenix is a whole different animal. But without campaign, they're not as big of a threat. But I think, for me, seeing Chris Paul back like that, only putting up those numbers, showed how rusty he was. And it goes to show you that he kind of needed one more rep in order to, one more rep in terms of an actual game in order to get back to his old basketball self. He did good, but he certainly wasn't great. He certainly wasn't the superstar Chris Paul, that's for sure. I know he's getting up there in age, but me personally, he's kind of lost a little of his bounce. But he's still a phenomenal player nonetheless, and he is a big part of the Suns' success. So Game 4 is tomorrow at Staples Center. The Clippers need to win this game, otherwise they'll be down 3-1. And not too many teams have come back from a 3-1 deficit, a 3-1 hole, and then they've gone on to win. I know, obviously, we have LeBron and the Cavs, which Ty Lue was a part of that team as the head coach. But, again, going down 3-1 and going to Phoenix on Monday is kind of not a recipe for success, especially if Kawhi is still out. If Kawhi eventually comes back, then it's a whole new series for the Clippers. If Marcus Morris plays, then that is only a plus for them. If Cam Payne is out, then the Clippers need to take advantage of the situation. I know it sucks seeing these players injured, but look at the Lakers. They lost AD. Things eventually fell apart. The Nuggets didn't have Jamal Murray, in which the Suns were able to sweep the Nuggets very easily. The Jazz didn't have Mike Conley, and Donovan Mitchell was not at full strength. They eventually fell, and they were the number 1 seed in the West. The Brooklyn Nets, I know this doesn't attain to Southern California, the Brooklyn Nets didn't have Kyrie Irving, and then eventually they lost to the Bucks in 7 games, which I think everyone was rather surprised. And then James Harden was obviously not his full self, but still. Overall, the Clippers still have a shot, but winning Game 4 would definitely be key for them. If they win Game 4, they are back in this series. If they don't win Game 4, this series is going to look rather bleak for them. So, before we move on from the NBA, I actually have been hearing this topic quite a bit. Why should Laker fans root for the Clippers in the NBA Finals? My simple question deserves a simple answer. Yeah, no. No, Lakers fans should not be rooting for the Clippers. But I'm not going to really go. But honestly, you thought I was going to say it that simply? No. I'm going to give you all a good little detail on why Lakers fans should not be rooting for the Clippers. Now, I have a soft spot for the Clippers. I am a Lakers fan, but I have a very, very, very soft spot for the Clippers. And me personally, and for purposes of the show, I hope the Clippers do well because they'll give me more material. And then if they win the championship, and that's a big if, I'm not saying it will, but it could be possible. If the Clippers win the championship, then it would be great for Southern California, and again, it would give me more material. But for the majority of Laker fans, it's basically like rooting for, it's like a Yankees fan. It's like the Yankees and Red Sox. Yankees fans would not be rooting for the Boston Red Sox if the Yankees were eliminated and the Red Sox advanced the ALCS, and vice versa. Red Sox fans would not be rooting for the Yankees in the playoffs. They'd rather see like the Astros or the Dodgers or any other team win a ring. So, I again, to each his own, but honestly, it just doesn't look right. And Ty Lue kept saying, and this is him in his defense, he is a Lakers supporter because LeBron, and he was a former Laker, and he likes the Lakers, but even when the Clippers obviously aren't playing them, of course, or any of his teams aren't playing the Lakers. However, it just doesn't seem right. Now, obviously, you also have the Rams and Chargers, but that's kind of a pipe dream matchup. And I'm also guilty of this as well. There's also me being an Angels fan and a Dodgers fan. I don't necessarily like both teams. I just want to see the Angels still do well. And then the Dodgers, obviously, with their World Series title, having won it for the first time in like forever. Yeah. But back to Lakers fans not rooting for the Clippers as the Clippers continue to progress this postseason. It just wouldn't look right. Like, everyone says being a Clippers fan is tough because of all the heartbreak. Well, I understand. I'm a Chargers fan, and I totally get that. What I don't get is why Clippers fans need to be chirping and like celebrating like they just won a championship. I know it's the Clippers and their fans have been long yearning for a deep playoff run, but you don't need to like run your mouth, and you don't need to bring the Lakers fans into this, or you don't even need to bring the Lakers into this in general. Like just focus on your team and just forget about the Lakers. The fact that people are still talking about the Lakers and LeBron means that the Lakers and LeBron live rent-free in your minds. Like, I'm just saying, I don't even think I've tweeted about the Lakers ever since they lost in the NBA or in the first round. So, all in all, this is kind of the reason. Like, Clippers fans who keep boasting about how Lakers fans shouldn't be talking, or where are the Lakers fans at, or what are the Lakers doing right now, or how's LeBron doing, and whatnot, or when's LeBron's next game, and whatnot. No. Just, Clippers fans, you don't need to be saying that. Please stop. Like, for me, I will, like I said, for purposes of this show, and for purposes of, I kind of want to see the Clippers have success, I want to see them do good. Am I going to be, like, going all in for bandwagon? Like, for me, I am a fan person for life. Like, if I'm rooting for a certain team, I'm not going to, like, jump on the bandwagon. Like, I obviously am a Dodgers and Angels fan, but I want to see the Angels win a World Series, and obviously Mike Trout deserves a World Series, and Shohei Ohtani, and everyone else, and yada yada yada. And then you have the Dodgers, which finally broke their curse after a million years, and then you have the Padres, which I'm not a huge Padres guy, but it would be great to see the Padres actually win their first World Series. Like, San Diego deserves a champion because San Diego has gotten screwed in terms of sports, considering what happened with the Chargers and whatnot. So, yeah, thanks, Dean Spanos. Did I say that out loud? I digress. But as for reasons why Lakers fans should not be rooting for the Clippers, is because Lakers fans are totally fine with the Lakers and how they won their first NBA championship since 2010, and now they're back in the postseason, hopefully they could stay there. And honestly, it's tough for Lakers fans to type and tweet when they have 17 rings on their fingers and whatnot. So, all in all, I totally am agreement with all the Lakers fans that say they shouldn't be rooting for the Clippers because it would just feel weird. Like, I want success for the Clippers, but I'm not going to be rooting for them. Like, for purposes of the show, like I said, I will be on board with the Clippers and hoping that they can have success so I could talk about them, but I'm not going to be rooting for them. See, I'm not going to wish ill will on them or any of that sort of thing. Like, I want what's best for the Clippers, and they have been long yearning for this. I admit it. Like, and again, me as a Chargers fan kind of relates to this. Like, as a Chargers fan, have been waiting for a deep playoff run, and I haven't been around too much to see the Chargers have great success. Like, their last Super Bowl appearance was when I was like, in 95, when I was like 2.5 years old? No, I was just 2 years old. Yeah, and ever since then, the farthest the Chargers have gotten was the AFC Championship game where poor Phillip Rivers had to play with a torn ACL, and he just could not outplay Tom Brady and the Patriots, which eventually that perfect season got deteriorated. So there was that. But that's getting a little off topic. Back to the Lakers and Clippers. Like for me again, I'm not gonna root for the Clippers, but I am gonna hope that they have success. Like, I personally think that they deserve this moment, and their fans deserve this moment. But again, I just don't want to see like Clippers fans like run their mouths on Lakers fans or the Lakers and whatnot. Because I do have a diehard friend who has been a Clippers fan since he was in the WOM, and obviously he is happy as a lark or clam that the Clippers are in the Western Conference Finals. However, he obviously does not want the Lakers. He obviously does not want to see the Lakers succeed anymore because he thinks being a Lakers fan is a little But I'm just going to leave it at that right there. I respect his opinion. I respect his opinion that being a Lakers fan is rather easy if you're jumping on the bandwagon. If you're not jumping on the bandwagon, if you've been a Laker lifer since you came out the WOM, then that's a complete difference. So there's that. But to all my Clippers fans, or to all my friends that are Clippers fans, you deserve this moment, and I hope the Clippers do make you all proud, and I hope the Clippers do make Southern California proud. If they don't, then I'm going to let them have it on this show. But if they manage to win it all, then I'll be singing praises about them, and honestly, I'll be preparing a speech for them. And you'll get to hear me sing praises about how the Clippers finally broke the Clipper curse. And one more thing before I move on from the NBA is, the funny thing is that this is actually the first year without Doc Rivers. So Doc Rivers was let go by the Clippers in the summer of 2020 after the Clippers lost in the second round last year. So Doc Rivers eventually found his way back to a coaching gig as he was named the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. What happened to the poor Philadelphia 76ers is that they lost in the second round to Atlanta, which was very tough for them. They lost to the 5th-seeded Atlanta Hawks in 7 games, as that was rather disappointing by them, and it's rather funny that they lost in the second round, because the funny thing is that the Clippers, without Doc Rivers, advanced to past the second round, while the Sixers, which just hired Doc Rivers, who has suffered a bunch of Game 7 losses, and who has suffered a lot of heartbreak when he was with the Clippers, eventually found its way out of the second round, which was disappointing, but rather funny. So, I just wanted to share that with y'all, and it's rather funny that Doc Rivers still hasn't gotten out of the second round ever since his days as the Celtics coach. Probably. C'est la vie. I think the last time Doc Rivers made it out of the second round was when the Celtics played the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think it was back in 2012. Not entirely sure, but it is what it is. So all in all, it was a rough go for Doc Rivers. But I kind of feel bad for him, but I kind of don't. So there's that for the NBA. If you want more NBA talk, definitely tune in to Fast Break every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's going to be on a Sunday. And you should definitely tune into that because Davidson and Dentarius do an excellent job talking not only about the NBA, but about the WNBA, NCAA, and all things basketball. So definitely do give them a listen. So there's that for the NBA portion of the show. Now let's jump to the WNBA portion of the show because I don't seem to talk about the Sparks enough. So the Sparks played the Minnesota Lynx, the Washington Mystics yesterday, and they beat the Mystics 89-82, which thank goodness they are back on track. Earlier in the week, this past Sunday, the Sparks lost to the New York Liberty 76-73. That game actually marked the first ever WNBA game in, I think, 24 years. Yeah, it was 24 years. And the reason how I know that number 24 is because good old Kobe Bryant. So, but unfortunately for the Sparks, they fell to the Liberty, which was disappointing. It was tied after 3 quarters, but unfortunately the Sparks were just unable to obtain the win. It was 58-58, but unfortunately the Liberty found a way to win the 24-year anniversary of the first WNBA game, as the Liberty were led by Rebecca Allen, who had a double-double. No, she did not have a double-double. She had 19 points, and she had 6 assists. So there was that right there. Sabrina Ionescu, I probably butchered her name, which is my bad, had 9 points and 6 rebounds. She's actually been held to under 10 points for the past 7 straight games, which is kind of disappointing, but I hope she does get out of this funk. I'm sure she will, though. And then last Friday, the Sparks lost to the Phoenix Mercury 80-66. This was 2 days after they beat the Mercury in a WNBA Commissioner's Cup game. So, about the Commissioner's Cup. So, the Commissioner's Cup is kind of like I want to say it's like the EuroLeague, except there's like a tournament in the middle of the season. And then it's obviously played for like charity and bragging rights and cash considerations. It's kind of like a league that has like a tournament in the smack dab in the middle, and I guess they decided to go with this whole Commissioner's Cup thing. I kind of like it, but do the WNBA teams want to deal with it? I guess. And I think they're going to have this whole Commissioner's Cup knockout round during the Olympics and whatnot. So, we'll see how it goes. As Larry B pops in the chat room saying, I heard there was a SoCal show going on. Yep, and you are in the right place, my guy. Except I think I might have messed up on something. But either way, this is actually a good time for me to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the WNBA and whatnot. And we'll also talk some MLB because all of our MLB teams, with the exception of the Padres, are doing pretty bad. So you're listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Teran Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
And welcome back to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Sorry about the abrupt little pause and break right there. I actually heard something fall in my house, so I just needed to clean it up. But nothing really... Well, actually, I didn't clean it up. Nothing fell on the ground and nothing broke. I just heard something and then I just needed to check on it. So, c'est la vie. Better to be safe than sorry. But welcome back to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So, we'll jump right into segment number 2. We'll jump back into a little Sparks action. So, currently, the Sparks are not doing great. They are dead last in the Western Conference. Fortunately for them, it doesn't matter where you finish in the conferences. All it matters is if you finish in the top 8 of the whole league, you automatically go to the WNBA playoffs, which anything can happen in the postseason. Just ask the Clippers. But I digress. So, the Sparks are 6-7. They are actually tied for the 8th spot with Phoenix and Minnesota. Honestly, for the Sparks, they still have plenty of time left. I think they could still get in because they have a whopping 2 games left in June. They have 4 games in July, 8 games in August, and 5 games in September. So I think the Sparks will be fine. They have been dealing with injuries and whatnot, so it's unfortunate for them, and I hope that they can steer the ship soon. But if they don't, I will be disappointed, because I like seeing the Sparks in the playoffs. Like, and whatnot. So there's that right there. Something I also do need to talk about, and this is probably going to be the most disappointing thing that I'll be talking about in terms of the Sparks, is one of their players got left off of the U.S. women's basketball team roster, which I'm looking up. I'm looking up who the player is, and I'm looking up who this player was that from the Sparks that got left off the team. And honestly, the fact that this one player did get here it is, Nanika Ogumike, and I butchered that entirely. She did not make the U.S. Women's Olympic roster, which apparently someone thought that Enike's getting snubbed was about politics and not talent. So, which is, again, there's a paywall on this story, but it's from the San Francisco Chronicle. But honestly, it really sucks that she got snubbed, and I really feel bad for her because she is an MVP. I think she's the only MVP to not make the U.S. Women's Olympic roster, which really sucks. And NBA players have been sounding off on Enike's getting left on Enike getting left off the roster. Players such as Damian Lillard said they really did Enike Ogumike dirty like that, SMH, which I kind of agree. And I want to see other people and players sound off. Candace Parker sounded off saying, "You're the only MVP you're the only MVP not to make an Olympic team," which is BS. That was from Candace Parker, Enike's former teammate, which I totally agree. And it really sucks. Yes, she is the only WNBA player to not make a U.S. Olympic basketball roster. It really is sad, and it's just heartbreaking, especially since she's from Southern California. If she was like from another team, I don't think I'd be fully caring, but it really is sad. But actually, no, I would care, because an MVP like that, being the first ever WNBA MVP to not make the U.S. Olympic team, is very heartbreaking. And for all your hard work just to get snubbed is disappointing. And even head coach Derek Fisher says, "Where do I start? We're pissed, honestly. The thing about Enike is nothing has to be given to her. She earned it. She deserves it. That's the most frustrating and disappointing part. That's the part that makes you angry the most." And then more from Derek Fisher. He says, "She was asked to serve as part of a group of 8 players that went on a Team USA tour and represented USA and pushed and promoted, sacrificing financially, sacrificing for Team USA, sacrificing her body. I don't know what else a player is supposed to do." And then Fisher also mentions one of her injuries. She says, "You could throw the injury out there. I'm calling BS on that one too. The timeline doesn't add up." And then Fisher also goes on to say, "I know for sure that what she said was the time. Yeah, I know for sure what was said was the timeline was okay." And then he says it's also a freaking travesty that Ogumike is missing or being left off the team was a travesty. So, I really feel bad for her, and it really sucks. I hope she turns this into like a happy ending, and I hope whenever if and when she does make the next roster, or she uses this as motivation to like say, hey, I was left off the team, but this turned out well for me. And I think this is going to be a great moment in her life that it's kind of like how Michael Jordan was left off of his varsity team. And as we get Marcus Losgray into the chat room, he says, what up, what up, what up, no? And he says, it's been a minute, right? And yes, it has been a minute, but welcome back to the chat room, as we are glad to have you in, Marcus. Just talking a little WNBA action about Enike Ogwumike being left off of the U.S. women's team, the U.S. women's basketball team, as she became the first WNBA MVP to be left off the U.S. women's team, which is very disappointing. And everyone is saying that she should have made it and whatnot. But c'est la vie. But again, I hope that she just turns this negative into a positive, and then she continues to work hard, and then eventually she makes the next roster, if and when that is, which will probably be in 2024. So if this whole thing is about politics, then I want to gag, because I don't think that should be the reason why a player doesn't make it. A player should make it whether they're skilled and talented, and I'm almost 99% certain Enike is very talented. Like, I'm no WNBA expert, but she will definitely use this as motivation, and it wouldn't surprise me if she has like a revenge tour, or not like a revenge tour, but a big-time MVP run. And Marcus says she should turn it into a championship run. Facts! And that would be, like, I for one would be on board with that. So, and I would definitely be on board seeing the Sparks win the championship. So, I am totally on board with that. But for now, I really feel bad for her. I wish her the best, and hopefully this isn't a mistake on the US's part. So, there's that right there. That's enough WNBA action and LA Sparks talk. Let's jump on over to some MLB action. So, the Dodgers have been Viva los bad. No better way to say it. The Dodgers have been a complete laughingstock, as they've lost how many? 5 in a row? No, 4 in a row. I forgot. They swept the Diamondbacks, and then they got swept by the Padres. I had this feeling that the Diamondback series was a complete trap series. So in the first game against the Dodgers-Padres, the Padres beat the Dodgers 6-2. Then in game number 2, which was this past Tuesday, the Padres beat the Dodgers 3-2. And then on Wednesday, the Padres beat the Dodgers 5-3. And that was very disappointing. Marcus says, say it correctly. They've been trash, LOL. Well, as of recent, not we're just gonna forget about how they were off to a hot start and how it looked as if they were gonna repeat as NL West champions, and it was gonna be another little promising run for the Dodgers. But this has me concerned. Now, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It gets worse. So the Dodgers last night, they opened up a 4-game series against the Cubbies, and unfortunately for the Dodgers, they lost 4-0. But it gets even worse. It gets even worse. The Dodgers, get this. The Dodgers were not only shut out by the Cubbies, they were no-hit by the Cubbies. It was a combined 4-pitcher no-hitter. The first ever combined no-pitcher no-hitter in Cubs history, which was absolutely disappointing. It's wow. And here's the thing about the Cubs. They have a sub-500 record on the road. So the fact that the Dodgers got no hit against the Cubs at the Chavez Ravine is absolute dog doo. But the Dodgers have been struggling, and again, Mookie Betts has been really, 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 really struggling. What was it? $300 million just to see him struggle night in and night out? Big oof. Like, that'll give you indigestion. Regardless, the Dodgers still have 3 more games to make up some ground against the Cubs. That's not what's concerning me. What's concerning me is, okay, well, the Dodgers are now 4.5 games back of the Giants. But it gets worse. The Dodgers are now tied with San Francisco for the second spot in the the NL West, which has me a little concerned. I know the Dodgers have played 2 less games than the Padres, but the Dodgers having lost 4 straight is not good. But again, like I said, that the Diamondback series was a huge trap game, and they fell deep into the trap. And there's no pride in sweeping the Diamondbacks. No offense to Arizonians and the Diamondbacks fans, or at least a few Diamondbacks fans, but there's no impressive feat when you sweep the Diamondbacks. Like, if you're losing 1 game to the Diamondbacks, then your team has some major problems. And here's the thing for the Dodgers. It gets even more worse. The Dodgers' schedule has picked up. So the Dodgers are certainly not playing any more Arizona Diamondbacks thing. I'm getting NFL and MLB mixed up, as the Dodgers still have 3 more games against the Cubs, starting tonight at 7:10, then on Saturday at 4:15, then on Sunday on MLB on ESPN, which is rather cool. And Marcus says the Diamondbacks haven't been the same since Colangelo was the owner. Yeah, I agree. And then it gets, and like I said, the schedule picks up for the Dodgers, or it has picked up, as the Dodgers play the Giants on Monday and Tuesday. It's bad enough that the Giants are ahead of the Dodgers in the NL West, but now the Giants have a chance to make up a lot more ground and to distance themselves from the Giants. So next week for the Dodgers, Larry says the Cubs are going to sweep. What? I did not say that. What? I never said anything like that. The Cubs are not even going to come close to sweeping. I could see the Dodgers taking at least 1 game. The Cubs may have swept the Dodgers earlier in the season, but that was at Wrigley Field. No, Marcus, the Dodgers are not getting swept by the Cubs. They can't suck forever. That's my motto. You cannot suck forever. You gotta at least take 1 of these. Because if they lose the next 3 against the Cubs, they're all but screwed against the Giants. Like, they shouldn't even show up. Like, they should just forfeit those games. But, again, this whole MLB season is a marathon and not a sprint. There is plenty of time for the Dodgers to eventually make up ground and hope that the Giants eventually collapse. But this Giants team has kind of been the talk of the town and whatnot. And Larry is talking about how the Raiders suck forever. Now, come on, Larry. This is not the Las Vegas Supreme Sports Show. This is the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as you once told me when I was talking about the Denver Nuggets. But that's a little off course. But overall, this has been disappointing by the Dodgers, to say the least. Next week, they have a 4-game series against the Washington Nationals. Then their schedule starts to ease up a little bit. They play the Marlins after the Nationals. Then they have the Diamondbacks at home. Then the Rockies at Colorado. Then they have the Giants in another 4-game series. So I think the Dodgers just need to take the bad with the good. They also need to get healthy, and Mookie eventually needs to snap out of his funk, because $300 million just to lay goose eggs, and the worst part is these goose eggs don't even add up to being great meals. Overall, the Dodgers need to start getting it together, but there's still plenty of time for them, so we'll see. So now let's jump on over to the Angels, which are currently playing as they are tied with the Tampa Bay Rays 3-3. Eventually, the Angels actually went up 2-0 off of a solo shot home run from Shohei Ohtani, which has been the biggest bright spot for the Angels this season. And then they also got another home run from Anthony Rendon. But unfortunately, in the bottom of the first inning, the Tampa Bay Rays scored 3 runs because I'm kind of curious. Who is pitching for? Oh, Griffin Canning. Oh, wow, that's kind of surprising. I thought Griffin Canning was better than that, but I guess not. So Griffin Canning only lasted 5 innings. Wow, he actually went 5 innings. That's cool. And I guess he got replaced by Jose Suarez. So the Angels have been struggling just as much. Marcus says, aren't the Angels for sale? I'm pretty sure they are. After what they've experienced, I'm pretty sure they're for sale. They're probably on like the clearance rack. Anyway, as for the Angels, this past week, the good news is they actually took 2 out of 3 against the... Actually, no, they took 3 out of 4 against the Tigers. The only problem is that final game against the Tigers, they wound up losing 5-3. And this is the Tigers we're talking about. And they lost in 10 innings, which... that's even more disappointing. And it gets worse. The Tigers actually scored 2 runs in the top of the Marcus and Larry are thinking about buying the LA Angels or the Anaheim Angels, wherever they're from. They're thinking about buying the Angels. Regardless, the Angels failed to score anything after the 5th inning, which was disappointing. And I can't wait for Mike Trout to get back. But it gets worse. It got worse for the Angels this past week. So on Tuesday, after they got a little day off from their little heartbreaking loss from the Tigers, they lost to the Giants 5-0. But the Giants are good. What happened to them the next day was even more disappointing. So the Giants and the Angels face each other in Game 2. It was only a 2-game series. So the Giants and Angels actually had to go to extra innings. And disappointingly, the Angels were actually supposed to win that game, as they actually had a runner cross home. And apparently the runner was tagged out at home, and everyone is saying that he was out. I actually saw the replay, and I think that replay actually got it right, or the umps kind of got it right. It looked like his foot just barely was behind the plate after the tag. So overall, it was just that little replay kind of took that game-winning run away from them, because it was originally ruled safe, and then the call was reversed and switched to out, which I think was the right call. Everyone else disagreed with it, but tape don't lie. And then eventually the Giants scored 6 runs in the top of the 13th inning, and they won that game 9-3. And everyone basically just threw Joe Madden under the bus, which I suppose that's correct, considering he did make some questionable decisions. All Anthony Rendon needed was to sack, and then the Angels won, and unfortunately he just couldn't, which is disappointing. So, as for the Angels, they play the Tampa Bay Rays in a 3-game series on the road, and then it gets worse for the Angels. The Angels have another 3-game series against the Yankees, and it's at Yankee Stadium. And Marcus, I know, is a Yankees fan, I'm pretty sure. Actually, it's a 4-game series. That's even worse. So basically, the Angels could be in for a rough ride these next 7 games, because you're facing the Tampa Bay Rays, which currently is ahead of the AL East, and they have the third best record in the AL. So there's that for the Angels. And then the Yankees aren't too far back of the Rays. They're not the greatest, but they're certainly not the worst. They're vying for a wild card spot. So there's that. Marcus says fresh meat, and he says he can't wait. Oh, boy. And I'm just counting down the days when Mike Trout comes back. As the Angels are currently fourth in the AL West, they are 36-38. The good news is they're not the Texas Rangers, as they're 10.5 games. They're 9.5 games back of the Angels, and they're 20 games back of the Houston Astros, which lead the AL West. So, but we don't care about Houston because this isn't the Houston Sports Show. But the Angels definitely are struggling, and it was disappointing because they had such a great start to their season, and then unfortunately they built us up only just to bring us down, which it hurts. It really hurts. And the worst part is the Angels are not, and I don't mean to use the T word, but the Angels aren't good enough to make the postseason, but they're not good enough, but they're not bad enough to tank. So they're not going to get Kumar Rocker anytime soon. And Kumar Rocker is the stud pitcher from Vanderbilt. So that honor's probably going to go to Arizona or Pittsburgh or Texas or Baltimore. So, but they could also hope they get, I think his name is Chase Williams. He is the pitcher for ECU who really did well against Vanderbilt. I believe that's his name. I want to double check as... Hold on. I guess not. So, but regardless, whatever his name is, I hope he does great guns for whoever he gets drafted by. I'm still trying to look up his name, but either way, I just want the Angels to actually focus on pitching and not on, like, other things. It's really starting to get annoying. Gavin Williams is his name. I thought it was Chase Williams, but it wasn't. I was getting a football player, but that's totally different. So now we go on to the final Southern California MLB team. That is the Padres. So the Padres, ever since they got swept by the Rockies, they have actually been on a hot streak, as they actually swept the Cincinnati Reds this past week. Last Thursday, they won Game 1 6-4. Last Friday, they won 8-2. Last Saturday, they won 7-5. And then last Sunday, they won 3-2. Obviously, they swept the Dodgers, and this looks really promising for them because the next 3 games are against the Diamondbacks, and it's still at Petco Park. That is very promising for the Padres, as after that series, they have a 3-game series against the Cincinnati Reds, and then a 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies, which have basically been off and on. So overall, the Padres still have some ground to make up. The problem is for the Padres is that San Francisco is still leading the herd. The thing about the Giants, though, is that the Giants are facing the Oakland Athletics this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then on Monday, they have a 2-game series against the Giants, like I just said. And then next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Giants are at Arizona. And I know people are probably wondering, why is a Southern California show talking about Northern California show? You gotta keep an eye on that competition. Also, we have a Northern California show here on iSports Radio. It's called Reppin' to NorCal Sports. It is hosted by none other than Gina G. That goes on every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. You definitely don't want to miss it. It just finished its 2nd episode, as it's definitely a fun little time. It's kind of like this show, except it's still young and it's still in its like young infancy stage and whatnot. So Marcus says he's enjoying Sierra Nevada tonight. Hey, good job, great job, great, and that's great to hear, Marcus. And I hope you come back to Newport Beach soon, because it would have been great to see you last year. But c'est la vie. I digress on that. So that's going to do it for the MLB portion. Looks like it is a complete little flip-flop from last week. The Dodgers were doing great, and then the Padres were doing bad, and now it's vice versa. Dodgers are now doing bad, and the Padres are doing really good. So good for those Padres. And Marcus says they are headed to Newport Beach in September. Hey, hit me up, man. Definitely let me know so I could meet up with you and whatnot. And hopefully I'll still be here, because who knows what could happen with my future now that I'm done with college and whatnot. But that's besides the point. Let's jump on over to some MLS action. So last Saturday, the LA Galaxy... Wait a minute, hold on. The LA Galaxy lost to the Seattle Sounders 2-1, which really was heartbreaking. The Galaxy actually led 1-0, and then it looked really promising. And then the Sounders started to play some soccer, and eventually they scored the first goal in the first half, and then they scored the second goal in the second half, 4 minutes in. And that was pretty much the game. But Seattle's really good, though, so I can't really, bash the LA Galaxy too much. The LA Galaxy got their goal from Sacha Klestan. I'm probably butchering that name, so I apologize. So there is that for the Galaxy. Meanwhile, LAFC tied with the Houston Dynamo 1-1. Jose Cifuentes had the lone goal for LAFC as they tied with the Houston Dynamo. On Wednesday, I couldn't believe there was actually soccer going on, but there was soccer going on, and LAFC and the Galaxy both played. The Galaxy actually won a dramatic game against Vancouver. The Galaxy actually scored the first goal of the game in the second half, 2 minutes in, as Javier Hernandez scored in the 47th minute. And then Vancouver actually scored in stoppage time, 2 minutes in stoppage time, as Bikel scored, and it looked like this thing was going to end in a draw. But then the Galaxy got a goal from Efrain Alvarez, as he scored a minute after Bikel scored, as the Galaxy grinded out and won that game against Vancouver 2-1. So that was great stuff right there. And then LAFC defeated Dallas 2-0. Carlos Vela scored the first goal 4 minutes into the game, and then Latif Blessing scored in the 69th minute. Yes, I had to say 69. Sorry, I had to use that joke. Anyway, so LAFC and the LA Galaxy are back in action on Saturday. LAFC plays at Sporting KC at 2:30. That actually is going to be on ESPN, and it's going to be on at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So there's that right there. And then the same day, the LA Galaxy play the San Jose Quakes, which basically that's going to be NorCal versus SoCal, which we've got a little rivalry going on with repping to NorCal Sports and SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So that's pretty much my little spiel on the... Actually, no, it's not. We still have a lot more to talk about, a little bit more to talk about when it comes to the MLS, as there's plenty of meat on this bone. So the LA Galaxy moved up from the 4th spot over to the 3rd spot in the Western Conference, which is awesome. They have a goal differential of 0, and they have 18 points. They're behind Sporting KC and Seattle. Seattle has not lost a game this season or a match this season. I am very sad, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, LAFC is up to the number 8 position in the Western Conference. They have 12 points. They're tied with Salt Lake, as LAFC has one more game played, as they are 3-3-3, 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses, and LAFC has a goal differential of +1. So there's that right there for LAFC. There's still plenty of time for both the Galaxy and LAFC to improve their little Western Conference spots. For LAFC's sake, they have some catching up to do, and they have a very tough matchup against Sporting KC. While the Galaxy are at San Jose, they beat the Quakes earlier this season, but I heard it was because of an own goal from one of San Jose's players. Regardless, it's going to have to be some good goalie play from... There's going to have to be some good goalie play from the Galaxy, because that's been their Achilles heel the past few seasons. So, all in all, the Galaxy have really impressed me this season. They are 4 points away from equaling their point total from last year. 5 points from eclipsing that point total from last year. So, good for the Galaxy. They are finally getting it together. They are much too proud of a program to be sucking. Like I said, you can't suck forever. And don't forget it. Anyway, now let's jump over to some football commitment news. So, UCLA actually landed a 4-star wide receiver from Stockton, California. His name is Jaden Marshall, and he chose UCLA, and he was actually ranked number 22 nationally at his position for the class of 2022. He chose Auburn, Nebraska, and several other Pac-12 schools he picked UCLA over Auburn, Nebraska, and other Pac-12 schools, which, that's big for UCLA. They always have a great little receiver core, so good for UCLA. So, they're not the only ones that had a little bit of commitment news. It's around here somewhere. Oh, it's not. I guess not. Here it is. So, USC actually landed a big time player. They landed Jaden Gould, who is a 4-star 2002 grad, a 2002 player, class of 2002 player, who is a 4-star cornerback, and he's from Bergen Catholic in Oradea, New Jersey. So that just means USC's defense is going to get better and better, which is absolutely amazing. That was a big-time get for USC, and that's kind of the thing about them. Their defense is strong, but it needs to get stronger. They already landed that 5-star safety from Georgia, which was a huge get for them. And it's great to see that USC is starting to beef up their defense. So, good for them, and Marcus says Melton will mess it up. Oh no. I feel you're not too far off on that one. Oh my god. We've given him several chances, and he better not butcher this, so... And Marcus says we need to stop playing and hire Del Rio. I presume that's Jack Del Rio. So there's that right there, but I totally agree. Jack Del Rio wouldn't be a bad fit. One more thing before I send you all on your way and I sign off. Ernest Sears III, I guess, cleared a 7.2.25, which became the height which narrowed down the men's high jump field at the U.S. Olympic team trials. So that's basically some good news for USC. I'm not too big into track and field, but I did hear about this Sears guy, and I also heard that a 10-page paper did not, or yeah, a 10-page essay did not stop Sears from achieving his dream, which is quite nice. Yeah. Actually, no, it wasn't Sears. It was Isaiah Jewett. USC's Isaiah Jewett didn't let a 10-page essay stop him from making the Olympic team. And that's amazing because 10-page... I can't even do I can barely do a 5-page paper, but that is great that Jewett is still made the Olympic team, and I'm very happy. And I hope that Isaiah Jewett does great in the Olympics. I wish him the best, and I wish Sears the best. I'll have more about this probably next week or as time passes on and whatnot. So but I will talk more about him, and I'll also have more USC and UCLA commits, and I'll also try to have more San Diego State commits because we haven't gotten any San Diego. I don't really talk about San Diego State, but then again, they don't really post about their commits like Clay Helton does. Whenever a big time USC player commits to USC, Clay Helton has this 9-second clip which has the words "fight on." If you follow Clay Helton on Twitter or you follow USC football, you know what I'm talking about. So there's that. One last thing before I send you all on your way is this news actually comes from USC women's volleyball, and I know volleyball isn't supposed to be happening until Monday when I do set point. No set point, you're not coming out and playing today. But USC women's volleyball player Alexandra Gricka, aka Ola, is signing to play professionally in Poland. So, unfortunately, her departure means that she will not be joining the USC women's volleyball team, which is very, very heartbreaking, and I was really hoping that she would stay for another year, but she is going to be doing big things. She was only a sophomore. That's the sad thing. But seeing as she's already going to get to play overseas and professionally is absolutely amazing, and I hope that Ola does great things for Poland. And Trojan Nation's going to miss you, and all USC women's volleyball fans are going to miss you. We wish you nothing but the best, Ola, and I hope you do USC proud, and I hope you do Poland proud, unless you're playing USA. I digress, but fight on forever. So, good luck to you, Ola. But on that note, that is going to do it for today's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We got through quite a bit of stuff happening with the Clippers and whatnot, and why Lakers fans shouldn't be cheering for the Clippers in this postseason, and then baseball talk, and then MLS talk, and we even got through some USC talk. So that's going to do it for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show tonight. Without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get on out of here because we might have another show coming on, and I gotta get me some dinner because I am starving like Marvin. Thank you once again for tuning in to today's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you to Larry B. and Marcus Listgren for listening in the chat room. I definitely appreciate y'all. I also appreciate everybody for tuning in. It really means a lot to me. If you're listening live, I appreciate you. If you're listening on the replay, I appreciate you. If you're listening in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. If you're listening late at night and you're cutting your bedtime short, I appreciate you. If you're listening at all, I definitely appreciate you. For everyone here at iSports Radio and for our sponsor, the Southern California Warriors, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. If you're in California and you plan on going to the beach, please wear sunscreen. If you aren't vaccinated, definitely get vaccinated. And I will see you Monday for some set point action. Have a great rest of the weekend, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!